The Beast vs. Eva. She slept but without peace. With the two Boneyard clans bedded down within the safety of the basin, Eva should not have been so tortured. She, however, kept having terrible visions. A large human male with an evil countenance kept threatening her everywhere she turned. His name was Beast. She knew he was the strong man of the fanatics. Beast woke in anger. His scouts had failed again to find the ghost riders that harassed his forces. Once he had defeated the tiny witch at the river riding her terror bird, he thought everything would go smoothly. He had never experienced such aggravation before. Each time a lieutenant failed he had him killed and hung in a tree. It was getting hard to find new leaders wanting to advance up the chain of command. If it were not for the lure of a mate as a reward of service, there would be no one to risk the potential consequences of failure. He, like the previous strong men, used deprivation, intimidation, fear, and torture to lead a band of desperate people now numbering over 5,000. His spies told him the territory they had just invaded had sufficient game to last them several months. The bison and elk herds had not yet materialized, but considering the small population he had encountered and defeated made it likely that overhunting had not occurred and the resources would be abundant. The food stores of the Beast and his people were now quickly dwindling. He would need to find adequate resources to restock. There was a delicate balance between having enough warriors to defeat all rivals and too many mouths to feed. The normal solution of the Beast was to resort to cannibalism when things got out of balance. He preferred the younger meat himself. In fact, many times he would feast on humans over elk or bison. Beast decided he would survey his new conquest. He had his throne lifted and carried by his house guard and was off on an excursion. He was wanting to relocate his capital from one side of the river to the new land. His primitive throne was placed on a raft and he was pulled across the river secured by ropes. When on the other side, the guards picked him up again and took him to the locations they had picked out for his review and approval. Eva was now awake and was meeting with the night scouts. They reported on the enemy's locations and activities. It seems the fanatics always sent their spies out as 3-member teams. Initially, Eva had every team encountered killed on sight. However, she changed her strategy. She wanted to capture a few and confront them personally. The scouts this day had captured a trio and were holding them in the primitive rock pile dungeon. Raven, Eva, Credo and Limp left immediately for the old village remains. Before they arrived, the bird riders tied the 3 fanatics from the recon team to trees that were close to each other. Eva suspected these spies were doomed by the hands of their own people if they were known to have been captured. All she had to do was to brand them on their shaved heads with the Boneyard's arrowhead symbol, using a heated arrow tip, and they could never return to their people. Instead, if they were smart, would exile themselves to locations unknown to the Beast for the rest of their lives and thus no longer be a problem for Eva's people as well. She dismounted Raven, walked up to each one and looked them in the eyes. In the first 2 she saw fear and they turned their eyes away and bowed their heads. The last looked straight into her eyes and spit into her face. Eva wiped off his spittle and laughed. She had him branded first. Once branded on his forehead just above his eyes. She had him cut loose. He stood reluctantly for a few seconds and then ran off toward the north. 2 of the clan's best rider pairs followed the fanatic released. They were instructed to surveil in a way the runner could not detect. Eva then had the remaining 2 branded on the top of their heads, not on their foreheads. She cut them loose and offered them some roasted elk in one hand and a pouch with water in the other. The dumbfounded fanatics stared at her and each slowly accepted the food and water. Eva then gave the 2 stunned fanatics back their weapons. She turned her back to them and motioned them to follow her. In their bewilderment they followed like puppies. After walking a few yards, a group of clansmen surrounded them. She took a fur hood handed to her by one of the warriors and placed it over her head. She then took it off and gave it to the first fanatic. Eva dipped her head and he understood. He pulled the hood over his head. The other fanatic did the same. They were then led to the basin. The defiant runner with the branded forehead ran for hours. He finally collapsed and slept until morning. The Boneyard riders kept a close eye on him but kept their distance. The next day the runner encountered a 3-member recon team from the fanatics. As he approached them, one of the team started to yell at him. The runner collapsed in exhaustion. He was pushed face down, beaten and had his hands tied behind him. 2 of them then picked him up, put a choke collar around his neck and pulled him with them north. Each time he fell they would kick him and spit on him. This treatment went on for 3 more days. Finally, the 4 arrived at an encampment. There were probably several hundred fanatics there. The riders remained hidden but knew this was as far as they dare go. They returned to report to the Boneyard. The branded fanatic was exhausted and had not been given food since his capture. He was bruised, bleeding, and battered. Often he had difficulty in breathing. He was now tied tightly to a tree and his extremities were numb. He heard a commotion and could raise his head only enough to see poorly through his failing eyes. He saw what looked to be a throne with the strong man looking at him. His bonds were cut and he fell with a thump. He hit his knees, elbows and head before being roughly turned on his back. Someone threw water on him and the fanatic runner choked as he tried to breathe. The beast got close enough to look at the brand on his forehead and slammed his foot into the man's face. The strongman yelled, smiled broadly and said a feast would to be had by all that night. The drums began. The hooded fanatics were led to the basin. Once inside, the hoods were removed. The 2 could not believe what they saw. There were men, women, children, terror birds of all ages, dogs, and near the lake many young bison grazing. There were shelters, campfires, potters, weavers, tanners and flint knappers. The 2 were led to Eva's compound and given new skins to wear and shown by Eva herself how to use a sling. They started to sign and exchange words and meanings. Raven and his queen Jewel stood by closely and monitored the process, always ready to kill the 2 fanatics instantly if required. After the meeting with Eva the 2 were shown where they could bed down and then allowed to roam around. However, they were being watched by someone constantly. For the next several days the process was repeated. The communication got more and more sophisticated. The fanatics were sharing much about their culture while learning the Boneyard clan's way of life. There was no doubt that these 2 were changing daily with each interaction. Eva learned one of the fanatics' name was Toby. The fanatics moved their strongman, his household, and their food stores across the river and they settled into a location he agreed upon. The site was on the shores of a large lake which was a 3½ day march from the Boneyard's basin. The site was visible from high ridges above the lake. The Boneyard riders could reach it in half a day and were sending spies to the overlook daily. Everything important the fanatics did were reported to Eva and Raven within 12 hours. The beast was furious. His warriors had not located anything but singular elks and bison. The herds were nowhere to be found. Within the basin a change was underway. Eva had given orders to capture as many fanatic recon teams as possible. Her new recruits would be on the Boneyard capture teams. The first such mission proved to be the pattern repeated again and again. She and Raven went on the first such operation. 6 mounted clansmen surrounded 3 spies. They were confronted by Toby and other ex-fanatics. It was soon determined that one of the 3 on each team was always a brainwashed plant that spied on the other 2 team members. When all were branded and released, the spy of the spies almost always fled back to meet his fate. Within 4 weeks this process captured and branded enough personnel that these ex-fanatics worked independently with only partial support from the riders. In fact, with Eva's urging the new group which was led by Toby, started to raid the strongmen's assets. It was proposed that one raid would kidnap some of the women and children from the new capital. Eva's strategic plan was beginning to take shape. The yard's riders were keeping the bison and elk herds out of the reach of the fanatics. Others were capturing or killing many of the enemy's recon teams. So far the War Council had estimated the fanatics had lost 20% of their people, about 1,000 total. Their food was non-existent and they were killing and eating more and more of their weaker members. It was known most of the women and children were sequestered on the extreme eastern side of the camp. The lake was to the north and high ridges with steep cliffs came down from the south. These ridges and cliffs were closer to the congregated women and children than to the rest of the camp. So the guards were all on the west side of the area where the women and children were isolated. Their attention was almost exclusively turned toward the camp, not toward the ridges above them or the lake. The riders were always on top of the ridge. There was only one way up and one way down over 2 miles south of the lake. The route was only known by the yard. Large baskets were made and ropes built that could lift a basket filled with 2 adults 200 feet up the steep cliff. After sundown and after the drums were beating, 5 ex-fanatics swam at least a mile to the lake shore on the extreme eastern shore of the lake near the protected compound. Once there, they made contact with a few women walking alone on the shore. The ex-fanatics told them of a plan to remove any women and children that wished to leave. However, it would happen when the moon waned to its smallest point. This would be in about 7 days. The men left and told them they would return after sundown at that time. Eva knew this was a very dangerous operation. She did not know if the women would spill the beans and there would be an ambush awaiting the rescuers. Her intuition told her this harebrained plan could work. The personnel risking their lives would all be ex-fanatics led by Toby and they were willing to take the risks. Her people were going to start pitch fires on the far side of the settlement. They would be there only briefly but the fires would burn for hours. If the fanatics tried to put them out they were more likely to spread than if they left them to burn. 20 riders crept as close to the encampment as possible. They fanned out and found saplings and configured them as makeshift catapults. Just after sundown they lit pitch bags and launched them as far as they could into the fanatics' settlement. About 40 burning missiles rained down into the far western edge of the strongman's capital. The riders left immediately fleeing west. After about 30 minutes there were significant fires burning in the camp. The men swam ashore and organized the women and children, rushing them up to the cliff face. 2 baskets were awaiting them. 4 women went first. On the top were 10 terror birds and greased tree trunks on the edge of the cliff face. The birds hauled the baskets up and returned them in about 5-minute intervals. The group was able to safely rescue all the women and children wanting to leave. The group then organized at the top and left as quickly as possible. The terror birds carried 1 woman and his rider or 2 children and a rider. The number of women evacuated was 10 with 6 children. Eva was ecstatic when she met the group that escaped from the camp. They were brought first to the old village. The next day the escapees using the hoods were escorted to the basin. Everyone returned safely. Beast was hysterical. How had this attack occurred, and who allowed the riders to get close enough to his kingdom to burn a large portion of it? He never knew the women and children went missing and no one dared to tell him. Within the women's compound the word was out, there was a possible way out of their miserable world. It appeared none of the women told anyone. The guards were terrified and knew if they reported the loss they would be skinned alive and then burned to death. The swimmers returned to the beast's camp in a couple of days. The women brought one of the guards and together with the swimmers they organized a plan to evacuate more women and children by rafts. The guards would then escape either on the watercraft or go up the cliffs in the baskets. The boneyard became ship builders. They used willow trees and filled the cracks with pitch. They used poles and oars fashioned out of the same materials. The best archers would be on the top of the cliffs above the lake to pick off any fanatics that might alert and chase the rafts using canoes. The guards, who had a few primitive craft, would do the best they could to protect the armada. Each vessel would have 2 oarsmen and 2 archers. Some of the women rescued earlier volunteered to man the rafts to calm the escapees. A total of 30 primitive crafts were built. As fate would have it, the night was foggy, especially near the shore. There would be no torches, so a rope was attached between each of 3 rafts. There would be 10 groups of 3 vessels each. This time the mission began late into the night. It was raining and relatively cold. No one in the capital would be outside unless they had to be there. However, just in case a diversion was needed, a group of 20 riders were on the far west side waiting for 2 flaming arrows to be launched from atop the cliffs. The baskets were ready and Eva was on top the ridge. She could barely see the flotilla approaching from the north. As the first craft got within 100 feet of the shore, Eva ordered her people to lower her down the cliff face. They protested, but she demanded. The beast was bored and restless. He always had trouble sleeping, so he took 2 of his personal guards and left to visit the family compound. They carried torches and walked about a half-mile to the edge of his sleeping kingdom. There was a wooden stockade fence with a guard standing behind a closed gate. It had been several weeks since Beast had come to the compound. The guard, seeing the strongman, almost froze with fright. The Beast yelled for the guard to summon the women to the large round hut. Eva slipped into the back of the hut and stood behind the assembled women. She held her obsidian knife, the sharpest weapon known to man even to this day. 2 of the ex-fanatics, one was Toby, were standing just on the outside of the hut, pressed against the wall. Things were getting very tense. While this was going on, several of the rafts were filled and were quietly being pulled out into the lake. The children were drugged by the herb tea Eva had provided and asleep as their mothers carried them to the vessels. Eva watched as the beast yelled at the assembled women. She didn't want to sacrifice even one of these souls by leaving her. So, she did what she thought best. Eva yelled something nonsense and ran out of the hut. Knowing the guards would chase after her, she exited the structure. The beast's 2 personal guards, following close behind, had their throats slit by the ex-fanatics from behind. Without a sound, the 2 men died immediately. Now the beast was at her mercy. What a fortunate event! In her wildest dream she never thought this could have happened. She motioned for the 2 men to put on the clothes of the dead guards and drag her back into the hut. All the while she started to scream and cry. Eva had learned much of the fanatic language over the weeks and used words she knew were correct. Within seconds the other guards within the compound were alerted and came running to the commotion. Eva and the 2 ex-fanatics now knew the beast was in the hut alone and without protection of his personal guard. She motioned for all the guards not helping fill the rafts to respond to the altercation she was causing. Eva could not believe her good luck. How was this to end? Could she put an end to this nightmare right here and now? If she killed Beast, would other strongmen just step into his shoes? She had to decide, and quickly. His people were starving and the clan's territory could only feed them for a few weeks. Even if they cooperated fully, many thousands would eventually die from starvation, cannibalism, or violence. Eva could not save everyone, so she had to protect her own first. She had the 2 newly attired guards drag her in. As they entered, the beast ordered them to bring her to him. They held her between them and faced the strongman. He looked at her with anger, disgust, and disdain. He picked up his right hand and drew it back to backhand her. While he did so, she drew her knife and thrust it into his left arm. It went into his muscle like soft butter. She pulled it out and with a lightning thrust buried it in his left thigh and then just as quickly into his right thigh. He fell to the ground whimpering. Toby stuffed a wad of fur into his mouth and the 2 men tied his arms and legs securely. They left him bleeding in the dirt on the floor of the hut. After the rest of the women and children had been evacuated, Eva with the remaining guards went to the hut. The beast was writhing on the floor. Eva bent down and looked him in the eyes and asked him if he knew who she was in his language. He nodded yes. She told him, "I can gut you here and now slowly and with much satisfaction, or I can let you live, which do you want?" He pleaded. What do you want? She said, I will allow you to live if you take your people and leave this territory never to return again. I will be watching everything you do. I control many of your most trusted people, they work for me. Do you understand? He nodded yes. Your women will never return to you. Also, the knife I stabbed you with 3 times is poisoned. The antidote needs to be taken over a 2-week period. I will send enough every day to keep you alive as long as you do what I tell you to do. One slip or deceit on your part and no antidote. I can tell you the death from this poison is very unpleasant to witness, much less experience. Do you understand? Here is the first dose of the antidote. She handed him some bitter herbal roots from her pouch. Its taste was awful, but it was both an antibiotic and a narcotic painkiller. So, in her mind, Eva didn't really lie. She was just pushing the truth real hard. She turned and left. After everyone was evacuated, Eva returned with the 2 original guards. She had them cut Beast's bonds and remove the gag from his mouth. They cleaned and dressed his wounds as she directed. She instructed him, each day come here by yourself and we will give you enough antidote to stay alive. Stay here until sunrise and then you can call for help. She put up her finger and said, this is your first test. Don't make it your last. The 3 ran from the hut directly to the cliff base and jumped into the baskets and were pulled up the cliff. The sun was rising as the 3 reached the top of the cliff. Eva could barely see the last raft about to reach the other side of the lake. She mounted Raven and they ran down the ridge line on their way back to the basin. When Eva got home, she was so exhausted she collapsed, sleeping uninterrupted for 20 hours. Upon awaking, she met for an urgent update from the scouts. If things were not already enough, she was told the mammoth herders were within a couple of days from returning to the hunting grounds. Eva rolled her eyes and almost cried. Then it hit her like a sling stone. 1 mammoth equaled over a ton of food on the hoof. What if she arranged for a meeting between the fanatics and the mammoth herders, killing 2 birds with 1 stone? The fanatics could chase and fight the herders in a running battle for the rest of eternity, leaving her boneyard alone from now on. Now all she had to do was get them together. Eva sent her scouts out en masse and asked for updates every 12 hours. Raven carried Eva to the ridges above the fanatics' camp. She sent Toby to the hut to order Beast to ride the basket to the top of the cliff. The strongman was very sore, but the narcotic Eva was supplying him work well enough that he made the trip with minimal pain. When he arrived, Eva stood at the northernmost position on the ridge. She pointed northeast beyond the lake. She told Beast there was unlimited food past the lake, about a day's journey. He stated, "Why should I believe you?" Eva responded, "First, you have no choice if you wish to live. Second, I do not wish your people to die of starvation. And last, I want you to leave and never return. Today you will order your scouts in the direction I told you where the food is. Then you will have your people break camp today and follow your scouts. I expect you to have half of your people moving around the lake by tonight, or you will not receive your antidote today. You will remain in your camp tonight and return to the cliff tomorrow morning. Do you understand?" He nodded yes and returned to the basket. Eva, Raven, Credo, Limp and about 20 riders remained on the ridge. They were able to watch as yells and screams were coming from the enormous camp below them. The far western end of the camp was beginning to disintegrate and dissolve into a moving mass of people moving around the lake shore to eventually turn east on the far side. Eva, normally stressed and concerned when dealing with evil, calmed down, began to breathe deeper and her heart rate slowed. She slept well that night. When she woke the next morning, Eva's scouts arrived to brief her on their intelligence. They reported the mammoth herders were now within 1 day of the territory but had stopped moving and were resting in a verdant valley where they could graze for a few days. The recon team shadowing the leading edge of the fanatics reported slow progress because the people were weak from starvation. It looked now that the encounter between the two groups would take longer than first planned. Eva knew she must supply some food to at least to those who would make first contact with the mammoth herders. She decided to have her scouts supply bison meat to those fanatics who were furthest out in front. This would give them a better chance to successfully confront the herders. Eva was told Beast was coming up in the basket. She was going to give him 3 days of antibiotic and painkiller and give him new instructions. The meeting was tense as usual. He appeared a bit stronger and his eyes were clearer. The tiny woman told the Beast the rest of the camp would join the first half today in their march away from her territory. Eva told him he had 3 days to reach the location she indicated. Assuring him food would be abundantly available once he got to his objective, however, she did not tell him he would have to fight an enemy and hunt down mammoths to eat. Sending him away, Eva reminded the Beast, if he did not leave today, he would receive no more antidote. Her scouts had surveyed the herders and told the War Council they had about 300 members. They estimated 200 were capable warriors. Thus, even a small percentage of the fanatics should be able to surround and defeat or run them off. If they were smart, however, they would capture some and use them to manage the mammoths. Eva went to the cliff's edge and saw the dust and commotion below. Beast was on his way. She felt relief for the first time in months. Eva, mounted on Raven, rushed to the front of the fanatics' moving column. She was able to assess the condition of the people she was bypassing. They were rather pitiful. She didn't like what she saw but knew she had to persist in her mission. The Boneyard scouts had killed some elk and left them for the fanatics pressing forward. The word got back to the trailing masses and they picked up their pace in the hopes to share in the potential food. When Eva heard the report, she ordered her riders to provide as much game as possible without limiting their surveillance. On the morning of the 3rd day, Eva summoned Beast to her campfire. He came in riding on his throne. His guards were so weak they could hardly keep him on their shoulders. She had his men fed but did nothing for the Beast. Eva handed him a pouch with 2 more days of the antibiotic but no narcotic. It was time to take him off his pain meds. Experiencing a little discomfort would help his focus. Almost laughing at his situation, Eva thought, soon he might have to walk. She yelled, "At your present speed you will arrive at the required location in a week. This is too slow. Pick up your pace." Raven came up to her and sat down. She jumped on his halter and they, with the rest of the riders, left the Beast at the campfire. She yelled back they would meet in 2 days. Within seconds they were out of sight. The valley in front of the riders was several miles long and full of hundreds of mammoths. They were slowly circulating, picking out the best places to graze and rest. For the first time Eva saw the camps of the herders. Looking to be easily assembled and disassembled, their temporary structures were very crude but well engineered. They had a couple of large drags that no doubt were hitched to a few domesticated mammoth to pull when the herd moved. She remembered her experience with this group many months before. In spite of their attempt to kill her, was it fair to lead the fanatics to clash with this group of humans? She still had time to decide. Her first objective was to get rid of both the herders and the fanatics. Everything else was secondary. It had been 2 days since she met with Beast. It was now time to give him the last doses of the antibiotic. The plan's purpose was to rid him of her territory and facilitate the fanatics' confrontation with the mammoth people. This was the pivotal meeting. If it did not go well, she was prepared to kill him on the spot. She had him come to her on the top of the ridge above the mammoth herd. His men carried him on his throne as far as they could. He had to walk the last mile up to the crest of the steep and narrow ridge. Beast reached the top of the ridge. He was completely out of breath, his lungs heaving with stress. The altitude was higher than he had ever been in his life. Eva looked at him and smiled at Raven, who shook his head and closed his eyes in recognition. After Beast slowed his breathing and was able to concentrate, Eva pointed down at the valley and asked what he saw. He cleared his throat and coughed several times. Finally, Beast mumbles something incoherent and stumbles backward. After he steadies himself and comes back to the crest with Raven and Eva, he says, "What do you expect me to do with those beasts?" She responds, "I expect you to man up and get food for your starving people. You have no choice. You either kill and eat or die from weakness and starvation where you stand. Send your warriors out in mass and do what you must do. Toby will tell you what is known about what you see and make recommendations on what to do. The rest is up to you." Eva threw the leather pouch with the last dose of medication toward the beast and said, "We are now through with you. Do not return to the boneyard territory. You will be killed on sight. We spared your life only in the hope you will help your people. Now do your job, become a real leader. Your group is too big to sustain itself. You must divide your people into many smaller bands and send them out to other hunting grounds. Otherwise, you will destroy everything in your path and end by eating only your own flesh." She hopped on Raven and left the crest with her lieutenants. Eva prayed she did the right thing. Like all the decisions made over the years, she weighed the potential outcomes of each. She allowed the beast to live because he had control of his people and was weak and cowardly. Therefore, Eva could control him. Her intuition told her the strongman would fold to her strength. So far she was right. What she didn't know was if he was capable of dealing with the mammoth herders. Could he make the hard choices needed for his people to survive and thrive? Would he attack without warning or try to negotiate some type of trade with their clan? It will be interesting to see the outcome. She had her scouts keep a close watch on his activities. Eva ordered her warriors to retrieve the skulls of the giants from the thermals. She wanted a skull placed at every pass and major access point into the boneyard hunting grounds. They were told to leave an arrow or spear embedded in each skull. This she hoped would be a visual deterrent to any future invasions and would forever name their hunting grounds the Boneyard. To be continued. Continued.